Every major war in human history has a death toll attached to it. World War II, the deadliest conflict in recorded history, killed somewhere between 70 and 85 million people. World War I, roughly 20 million. The Mongol conquests, estimates range from 40 to 60 million. The Taiping Rebellion in 19th century China, 20 to 30 million. The Napoleonic Wars, 3 to 6 million. The American Civil War, 600,000. Add them all together. Every major war ever fought. Every battle. Every siege. Every campaign from the beginning of recorded history to the present day. The total is somewhere in the range of 1 billion deaths, attributed to human warfare across all of history. Now consider this. A single disease killed approximately 1 billion people in the 19th century alone. Not across all of history. In 1 century. And it kept killing through the 20th century. It is still killing today. It has probably killed more human beings than any other cause of death in the history of our species. And most people under the age of 40 have essentially forgotten it exists. The disease is tuberculosis. And the story of how it shaped and haunted human civilization for thousands of years, and how we collectively decided to stop thinking about it, is one of the strangest chapters in the history of medicine. Tuberculosis is caused by a bacterium called Mycobacterium tuberculosis. It is one of the most successful pathogens in the history of life on Earth. It has been infecting humans for at least 70,000 years. We know this because TB DNA has been found in ancient human bones from across Africa and Europe, and genetic analysis suggests the bacterium co-evolved with our species as we migrated out of Africa. It didn't find us. It came with us. TB primarily attacks the lungs, though it can infect virtually any organ in the body. It spreads through the air. When someone with active TB coughs or speaks, they release tiny droplets containing the bacteria. Those droplets can hang in the air for hours. Breathing them in is all it takes. What makes TB uniquely terrifying as a pathogen is its patience. Most people who inhale TB bacteria don't immediately get sick. The immune system contains the infection in a kind of biological standoff, walling the bacteria into small nodules called granulomas. This is called latent TB. The bacteria sit dormant, waiting. And they can wait for years, sometimes decades, for the immune system to weaken enough to break out. By some estimates, roughly 1/4 of the entire human population currently carries latent TB. Doing nothing. For now. Before modern medicine, a diagnosis of active TB was essentially a death sentence delivered in slow motion. The disease earned its folk names from its symptoms, the white plague for the pallor it gave to sufferers as their bodies consumed themselves. Consumption, its most common English name for centuries, because that is precisely what it did. It consumed the person from the inside. The cough came first, then the weight loss, then the night sweats and fevers, then the characteristic bloody sputum as the lungs themselves began to break down. Death was typically slow, measured in months or years rather than days, and it was everywhere. In the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries in Europe and North America, TB was so prevalent it accounted for roughly 1 in 4 of all deaths. Every family, every social class, every profession. You breathed it from shared air, and that was enough. And here is where the story becomes genuinely strange, because for most of the 19th century, the Western world did not respond to tuberculosis with the fear and horror you might expect. They responded with something closer to fascination. TB became aestheticized, romanticized. The disease that slowly drained the body and gave its sufferers a pale, ethereal quality was associated in romantic literature and art with sensitivity, genius, and beauty. The consumptive appearance, thin, pale, large, luminous eyes, made so by the slight swelling of infection, became fashionable. Women tried to achieve the consumptive look intentionally. The poets Keats and Shelley and Byron all either died of TB or were consumed by its cultural shadow. Keats died of it at 25. His letters described the disease with a mixture of dread and strange acceptance. Chopin died of it. Chekhov died of it. Emily Bronte died of it. Robert Louis Stevenson spent much of his adult life in sanitariums. Edgar Allan Poe lost his young wife to it and never psychologically recovered. The list of artists, writers, and composers who died of tuberculosis in the 19th century is essentially a list of the greatest creative figures of the era, and the disease shaped their work in ways both obvious and subtle. The obsession with death, beauty, mortality, and transcendence that defines romantic literature and art is inseparable from the disease that was consuming its creators. The scientific reckoning came in 1882 when a German physician named Robert Koch announced that he had isolated the bacterium responsible for tuberculosis. It was one of the most important moments in the history of medicine. For the first time, a specific microorganism had been identified as the cause of a specific disease, establishing the germ theory of disease on unshakable foundations. Koch's discovery changed everything. It meant TB was not caused by bad air or moral weakness or hereditary predisposition, as had been believed for centuries. It was caused by a specific infectious agent, which meant it could potentially be fought. The sanitarium movement followed, the idea that clean mountain air, rest, good nutrition, and isolation from crowded urban environments could arrest the disease. Sanitariums spread across Europe and North America. Thousands of patients were sent to them. Some recovered, many didn't. But the sanitarium era produced something unexpected. The systematic observation of thousands of TB patients over decades generated an enormous body of medical knowledge about the human respiratory system, nutrition, immune function, and infectious disease that would underpin much of 20th century medicine. The real turning point came after World War II with the development of streptomycin in 1943 and isoniazid in 1952. For the first time, TB could be treated, not just managed, treated, cured. The death rate collapsed, and almost overnight, tuberculosis disappeared from the cultural consciousness of the developed world. The disease that had defined the aesthetic of an entire century, that had killed 1 billion people, that had shaped the architecture of hospitals and the development of public health systems, simply vanished from the story we tell ourselves about our history. Out of sight, out of mind, which is where the story gets dangerous again, because TB never actually went away. Globally, tuberculosis still kills more people per year than any other infectious disease except HIV. In 2022, the World Health Organization reported that TB killed approximately 1.6 million people that year alone. Drug-resistant strains of TB have been developing for decades, partly because incomplete treatment courses allow resistant bacteria to survive and spread. And the latent TB that approximately 1/4 of the global human population carries is not a historical fact. It is a present reality, sitting in granulomas in the lungs of roughly 2 billion people right now, waiting for an opportunity. We didn't defeat tuberculosis. We defeated it enough that wealthy countries could stop worrying about it. And then we stopped funding the research, stopped building the infrastructure, and largely stopped paying attention. The forgotten disease is not really forgotten. It just stopped killing the people whose forgetting it could afford.